Objectively, this is going to be the worst video I've ever had to make, but morally, it is our obligation to push past our own comfortability and actually head-on face the atrocities that we are seeing. Now, I have to be extremely delicate with the way that I phrase this video, but this particular photo from one of Jeffrey's homes has been brought to my attention. First, I'm going to talk about the lamp. A lot of people noticed a particular similarity to this lamp, from the aesthetic, from the tailoring, from the texture. Unfortunately, that lamp came from this particular camp, and as you can see, was prominently displayed in the offices of the men who ran such camp. That lamp was made by this man, Carl Otto Koch. You see, he and his wife like to do little Etsy projects on the side, made from the people who involuntarily resided there. And I totally understand if this is too much for some people. I get it. But I would like to point out a close-up of that lamp and point out the similarities of that. All right, I'm done with the lamp, I promise. I know that was hard, but we had to talk about it for many reasons, and one of those reasons is also because of where the lamp is located. Now, at first glance, this could be just taken as random artwork. At second glance, it might look like it is referring to Jesus with the flowing locks, the facial hair, we've got the robes, not to mention praying kind of hands associated with Christianity, until you remember that Jeffrey was Jewish. And then you notice the rings on the fingers. Jesus was all about poverty. Historically, he is never depicted with any sort of rings, jewelry, anything like that. Then I realized that this looks like it's referencing more Grecian dress, more Grecian ornation. Now, I know y'all don't know me in real life, but ever since I was a little kid, I have loved Greek mythology. All the stories, all the symbols, I loved it. There is one Greek god in particular known for wearing a ring on his pinky. That would be the god Hermes. Now, some of you may be like, Jay, Hermes doesn't have a beard. Hermes has a winged hat. And no, you're not wrong. However, this depiction of Hermes actually came way later after the Roman Empire took over these deities. I guess they were like, there's too many beardos. The original Hermes was actually depicted with long curly hair, with a very well-kept stylized beard. And granted, I could be totally off on this, because by far that pinky ring is worn by a lot of different deities. But I have two huge reasons why I do believe that that is Hermes. Reason one, let me remind you exactly what Hermes was the deity of. He was the messenger of the gods, known for speed, going between the gods and the mortal realm. He was the god of commerce and trade, and his name is literally derived from the word merchandise. He was a protector of travelers and boundaries. Being known as one of the most clever gods, he was the patron of thieves and tricksters. One of his responsibilities was bringing souls to the underworld. And the second reason I believe that that is Hermes is because Hermes, according to Greek mythology, was the one who invented ritual sacrifice. Yes, his version involved cattle, but the way the story goes is that after he was born, while he was still in the cradle, he stole 2 cattle from Apollo, slaughtered them, burned them, divided the meat into 12 parts, and distributed it amongst the gods. But this act not only endeared him to the gods, but it established him as the patron of sacrifice. So yeah, the lamp sitting in front of an altar of Hermes makes perfect sense to me. Guess who got a cease and desist from a certain billionaire furniture family? And you know what? I'm not going to mention the company, and I'm not even going to mention the family that sent me it. And let's face it, little old me can't go up against billionaires. So you know what? It's fine. I'm just going to show you guys the cease and desist and read a portion of it and then read my response. To be clear, the documents referenced in your post were produced by the Deutsche Bank years ago as part of a mass production to the United States government pursuant to a subpoena. The records merely list the names of certain account holders at Deutsche Bank. They in no way suggest or imply that our client have any link whatsoever to Jeffrey Epstein. And y'all can pause and read this all yourself if you want, but it was sent to an old email address that I never check. I just so happened to log into it yesterday because I was looking for something in particular from an old email. So that I respond with, the videos have been removed from TikTok and YouTube, which are the only places that I have posted. Not sure how you got this particular email address, as it is not a current one, and it is just fortunate that I happened to sign into it looking for an old record. My lack of a response was not an obstinate one, just an inaccurate information on the part of where you obtained my contact information. Perhaps you would be so kind as to explain how your client's account information was turned over in a subpoena to the government. From what I understand, subpoenas tend to be very specific, especially in such a delicate and targeted investigation. So you can understand the confusion on how your client's account information became part of that, especially since a dozen other accounts listed in the same document are also associated with Epstein, and I can't come up with any reason why the Deutsche Bank would turn over their client account information without it being a target in the subpoena. I am more than happy to clear up the confusion on my page publicly. J. Megan. And for that, I got no response, so Like I said, I would love to publicly clear this up. But don't worry, I won't be talking about your company or your family anymore. Me, personally, I would just love some clarity on command number 2, where you say I can't talk about your clients or their affiliates relating to Jeffrey Epstein or his illicit activity. Since I don't know what affiliates you're talking about, since you only mentioned your clients. But like I said, it's a non-issue. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. Now, I don't know by now how many of you have seen the Pizza Amore, St. Thomas, but I'm going to debunk this troll post to uncover what they were trying to hide. So in the file drop, we've all seen the email where they ask, oh, what's the name of that pizza place that he likes? Send me the menu, blah, blah, blah. And people freaked out when they went to the website because it was clearly like AI, not real. There were no actual pizza orders, etc. This was done literally on purpose by this guy, Sam Hyde. He's a troll, a very unfunny comedian who is not only a very vocal supporter of Donald Trump, but associated with a lot of neo-Yazis for my taste. He specifically bought that domain name and set up that website literally on the first day of this second Epstein drop. Going back to 2015, which was the date from the email, it looks like it was a legit pizza shop. And there seems to be a legit Pizza Amore in the Virgin Islands. Whether this is the same place and they just got a better website or if it's a brand new pizza shop, I don't know, I don't care. Now here's where it gets weird, because around 2018, it was a transportation business called St. Thomas Amore. Very minimal website, not a lot going on. Now that transportation company was active all throughout 22, and as we can see, absolutely nothing happens in 2023. And then at the end of 2024, this is where it gets weird for me. This is now that website. This is now Pizza Amore. And I translated it, and it's a lot of medical stuff. No idea what any of this means. It all literally means nonsense to me, but what the actual F? And that's the way the website remained until February of 2025, where suddenly it was a vacant domain. Now this is important because that vacant domain became vacant specifically on February 28th, 2025. You know what else happened that day? It was the first phase release of the Epstein documents. Y'all remember that? Y'all remember that with their little binders? So clearly the sham release of the first phase of the Epstein files scared whoever this was enough to make them abandon the domain. Which now brings me back to this oh so funny troll by Sam Hyde. So Sam, how'd you know what website to buy? How'd you get this entire website put together so quickly? Unless you already knew about the website for whatever reason. Were you told to go make this website? This administration is fucking with us and we need to be careful. So a lot of people are talking about the Jerky thing. That has a lot of tension on it, so I don't need to talk about it. Everybody else has got it covered, but I do just have a couple of things I want to say about it. So Jerky doesn't need to be frozen. Jerky doesn't need to be kept in the fridge. Jerky doesn't need to be transported in a cold, insulated bag. What's not only weird is that Jeffrey wanted to get the nutritional value of the jerky analyzed, which feels like if it was made from animal products, that would be an easy thing to figure out without having to send it off. But why would you send Jerky to the head of a hospitality group to figure out the nutritional value of it? Especially Epstein, who has an army of scientist friends. We really get a glimpse of Epstein's behavior changes when somebody works for him, because the chef seems very scared of him, not gonna lie. All we've heard over and over again is how health conscious obsessed that Jeffrey Epstein was, yet his personal chef is making stews, pies, steaks, and the phrasing of this email is so haunting. J.E. said he was gonna start eating regular food again, so he might be eating less jerky. I saw a lot of emails that were hinting that the chef was leaving the employment of Jeffrey. He was okaying the search for a new chef. And it seems like Leslie found somebody who was available, who says she would be very happy to make you some beef jerky if you like. Smiley face. It's just weird that that is what they keep singling out. And in this email where clearly the chef is going on vacation or something and he's leaving a list of things for everybody, he talks about leaving a quart of marinade for jerky emergencies. And my guess is this is somebody who's going to be taking over the chefly duties while he was on vacation. And he very clearly explains how to cook these steaks. It's sous videing. It's not that hard. Chefs know how to do it. And yet he's tagging somebody saying, I will send an email explaining what the steak business means. I don't know anybody who has to explain what steak business means if we're talking about steak. I worked in fine dining for 10 years. This is my world, trust me. Okay, I guess I had a lot more to say about the jerky stuff than I thought. And as a reminder, everything in my videos are alleged and take with a grain of salt. They're my opinion. But do y'all remember how for months now I've been saying that I have found what is essentially the list or Epstein's web as I prefer to call it, and how Jeffrey Epstein had emailed himself all of these lists that corresponded to specific events going on, almost like he wanted to have a list of co-conspirators on hand in case somebody goes snooping through his emails. Well, not only did I find a new list, but I have found the earliest version of the list. And it seems like the DOJ was definitely paying attention to my list video, considering how many blacked out names are here. Oh, and we get a lot of overlap with the names from the other lists that I've found. But we also get some new additions. Like this one has Elon in it, Rupert and Wendy Murdoch, David Geffen, who I just posted a video about. Clearly I'm onto something in that video, but there's not just people in this email. There's also seems to be events like security conference. Here's that list from the chalkboard that I've talked about. And what's wild is here he mentions Venezuela, because on the date of that email was the day that Nicolas Maduro was officially sworn in as president of Venezuela. Yep, the same Maduro that we've been talking about in the news recently. But you know what else happened that day? They caught the Boston Marathon bomber. Is anybody else starting to be like, why is the Boston Marathon bombing keep coming up in all these stories? There's something weird going on with it. Especially when you take into consideration that Jeffrey Epstein also on that exact same day sent an email to an inventor named Dean Kamen wanting to provide free iBot or high-tech self-balancing wheelchairs to a victim of the Boston Marathon. And you know, it gets a little even more suspicious when you think about how Richard Kahn, Epstein's trusted, dirty financial lawyer, 3 days later sent Epstein an article from some app or something about how the brothers were double agents. So yeah, I think we need to be taking another look at the Boston Marathon, y'all. And this is the part where I remind y'all, if you like my work, go to my bio. And if you're seeing me right now, welcome to the page where I post my more risky Epstein rabbit holes. Peggy Siegal is one of the top publicists in the country, and thanks to the Epstein file drop, we now know that she was very, very close with Epstein. And despite claiming that she had no idea the depths of Epstein's crimes, well, it's pretty obvious that she did, especially when you look at this email. So in this correspondence between Jeff and Peggy, Jeffrey is joking about how these other people that are going down for SA is making him look good. And Peggy's all like, this has been going on since the beginning of time. And how people just suddenly have this new moral code. Feel free to pause, read this entire email. That's not what this is going to be about. Here she says, when are they going to out David Geffen, Barry Diller, and Calvin Klein? The Calvin Klein thing is not that surprising. Barry Diller was mentioned in the files in the previous drop because one of Jeffrey Epstein's victims, who was interviewed by the FBI, said that in the Virgin Islands, she mentioned someone despite being married, he is gay, and they mentioned that his wife is Diana von Furstenberg. Diana von Furstenberg was a fashion designer who ended up marrying, then divorcing a German prince, and in 2001, she married American media mogul Barry Diller. It should also be noted that she did sign a petition in support of Roman Polanski, but if you have no idea who Barry Diller is, you're not alone. He's one of the more low-profile American billionaires, but he co-founded Fox Broadcasting Company with Rupert Murdoch, and he was rumored to be closeted for decades. So no surprises there so far, but this name I had never heard of before, David Geffen. Now David Geffen I had never heard of, and so I was looking into his background. He has fingers all throughout all kinds of media. He worked in talent agencies in the 60s, he started his own record companies in the 70s. I mean, he was dating Cher while she was still married to Sonny, so it shouldn't surprise you that he came out in 1992, and until this year, this was his husband. I mention this because that husband is now divorcing him and has some very big allegations, like saying he was forced into surgeries and was forced to substances so that he could be controlled. Pause to read this if you want. But they essentially met in 2016 through seeking arrangements when he was only 22, 23 years old, which would have made him about 70 at the time. His husband also grew up poor and in foster care, so there's a lot of elements here that I'm like, yeah, this all makes sense to me. And in 2022, Geffen and Barry Diller, along with Furstenberg's son, were being investigated for insider trading with Microsoft. Apparently, David Geffen has so many yachts that he is the single highest polluting American in the country. At this point, we all know what was happening on these yachts. But something has been on my mind a lot lately, and it got re-triggered by the fact that David Geffen founded DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg.
Can you tell us a secret about Steven Spielberg? He eats babies. Whole babies.
Yeah, Shia LaBeouf has been on my mind a lot lately, and not just because of that clip I showed you, but with everything coming out about Maddie and Sia, people have been decoding her messages. Like, I'm sorry, this cannot just be a coincidence. And I even found this clip today.
That I was living in Beyonce's basement.
Now, some of you may or may not be familiar with the claims of Anya Wick, who came out about 10 months ago and said that she grew up in a cult of Baal and was actually Shia LaBeouf's twin sister that was separated from him. And this was very quickly debunked. But at this point, if the internet just says something is debunked, I don't know why we're swallowing that. We have to take this very seriously, especially when you consider how much she looks like Shia LaBeouf's mom. And you also have to consider that Shia LaBeouf's father was in prison from 1981 to 1983 for the attempted rape of a minor. I don't know if y'all have actually looked into Shia LaBeouf's past, but his childhood has a lot more flashing red lights, like how his uncle was going to adopt him because his parents couldn't afford him. Anya Wick claims that their uncle is Jeffrey Epstein. And I just want to say that all of these are like my own opinions, don't get me wrong. I don't have any like proof to back things up because I can't do DNA tests. But speaking of DNA testing, we now know that Jeffrey was obsessed with testing his DNA and he has all these like DNA matches. I think one TikToker said that they counted like 1,000 different matches throughout his emails. And Anya Wick's last name was originally Epstein. I'm just saying this isn't like that crazy of a story anymore. I'm not putting my stamp of credibility on it, but what I'm saying is let's look back at Shia LaBeouf, whose mom was not only Jewish, his dad was not only an addict, but apparently when Shia LaBeouf was 10 years old, he overheard a stranger raping his mother inside their own home. And we all know that Maddie Ziegler was also found in the Epstein files, and maybe Sia's music video Elastic Hearts, which I was obsessed with when it came out, so I immediately started thinking about this when all of this started coming out. But maybe there is a reason that Shia LaBeouf was chosen specifically for this video. Not just the child actor aspect of it, but going back and watching the video through the lens of what we know about the child trafficking and Epstein and all of this stuff, it suddenly is a different music video, y'all. Go watch it again. I mean, look at his hands and how they're injured and how they're covered in blood on the palms. How one escapes, but he can't get out. And it would be so easy to dismiss it and just take it on the surface level. But I started going back through Sia's other music videos, and it's not just this one. I mean, look at the set for Chandelier. Open doors, but no escape. And look at these two pictures on the wall. There's a pretty good argument that could be Ghislaine. And this woman, I swear, looks so familiar, but I cannot figure out who the F it is. But then, like, look at this in the background. To me, it looks like the binders that Epstein kept. The curtsying over and over again as the camera fades out. And then even the lyrics. Listen to the lyrics of Chandelier again. I'm gonna swing from the chandelier. Party girl for a good time call. I mean, look at the music video for Alive. Once again, it seems to be a child trapped in an abandoned home. I mean, the child has a bucket under a cot. I feel like the music video for The Greatest is the one that's the most damning proof. It starts off with hashtag We Are Your Children, and while it seems on the surface to be about LGBTQ kids, once again, we get children behind bars, strung out, held captive in a horrible apartment. But I really want you to take notice of what they're wearing. These gray outfits. Now let me show you this photo from the Epstein drop. Look at the gray outfits. Oh, and look, there's Nadia, pregnant. There's Jeffrey Epstein's longtime girlfriend at a very, very young age. Now, why are they all matching? Even Maddie, who usually has a nude bodysuit on, has a gray one to match all of these other children. And there's a moment where Maddie is in a red lit room, like the red rooms that a lot of people have talked about in relation to Epstein. And I want you all to just take a good look at this wide shot. Once again, abandoned warehouse type theme with what looks to be like holes, like maybe for trafficking when you give them some air. But y'all notice in the corner, once again, a red lit area. What's in that red lit area? A stove and an oven. I'm telling y'all, go watch the music videos again. It seems like they were so obviously trying to tell us something. It explains why Sia said that she was very protective of Maddie. I'm going to go ahead and pack up my liberal political correctness for a second because, you know, that's not the world we live in anymore. But I'm just going to go ahead and say it. It's time for us to stop being, This is a normal reaction. This is the reaction we should all be having. This person is my hero. I know they got arrested for doing this, but I don't care. I know it's all over the internet, the door-to-door thing, but imagine if all of us collectively at one time just all go outside and scream this. Maybe, people will start to wonder what the F is going on. I am genuinely gonna go to the store today and buy poster board and just start walking around with a sign, because we need to stop being afraid to say it out loud. Do you have any idea how tired I am of trying to talk about this with people in real life and people telling me that they can't handle it or that they don't want to hear it because they're just not in a great place mentally? I don't give a. That is the most privileged bullshit you can say in response to eating bacon. Oh, and I promise you guys, I am very mentally stable right now. I am very in control of my emotions, my actions. But let's remember, there's a whole world outside of TikTok, outside of social media, where people have no idea that this is happening. Sorry, do we think Jesse Waters and Rachel Maddow are going to talk about this? No! We need to start making flyers. We need to start telling the grocery checkout people. People don't want to hear? Well, that's too damn bad!